Okay, hi again, everybody. I'm here again with PharaohHazard, aka Lily. We're going to talk about a very interesting film. We've actually just been talking about it a little bit just before we went live, and I'm already excited. So we're going to talk about The Fall, which is a film by Tarsem Singh, a very interesting director. He's kind of what he's known for is like commercials and music videos. He's like one of those, like, I feel like in the 90s, there was a bunch of people that were really big who made music videos who then directed. So like Spike Jonze, was David Fincher. There's some other ones. And
didn't Zack Snyder kind of start out like that too? I thought I read something, yeah.
He's a commercial guy. Yeah, he was a big commercial guy. I think he still kind of does commercials. So yeah, totally spot on. And yeah, because he Tarsem did commercials for like, or music videos for like REM and some other pretty big bands. I think he did the "Losing My Religion" music video. He directed that, and he recently directed this really cool Lady Gaga video. I think it's like 911 or something like that. I forget what it's called, but it's cool. It's very cool. It's very cool.
Nice.
yeah, it's very cool. And it's very Tarsem too. So this movie is like the definition of like a cult classic. It's, for whatever reason, it's a movie that was made. It's basically a labor of love. It's a person who wanted to make this story like really badly, and a group of people who wanted to just make this movie the way they wanted to make it, not the way anyone else wanted to make it. So he largely self-funded it, did all these things where he would do commercial shoots in different countries and then on the side shoot this movie. It took him 4 years to shoot it. They shot in over 20 countries. And you can tell that it was like, this is another thing. He has a really good eye for like finding places that feel cinematic. Because you can shoot in different places and it can maybe not feel like, it's like, okay, whatever, that's where this, you can really tell and feel, okay, that feels like a different planet.
I totally agree. Like, it feels very foreign, it feels very alien, it feels very fairy tale, which I think this movie definitely has like that fairy tale element going for it. And it's like, if you can tell when a director loves where they're filming, when they are just like, when the landscape is just as much of a character as like the people in front of us or the actors in front of us, then you know like how much a director is just like gets it. And like Mad Max Fury Road is like the same thing. You can tell when a director's just like, this is my world, this is where my characters need to live and breathe. Yeah, totally.
So do you remember like when you first saw The Fall, or like when you first like heard about it?
I do, actually. This is a movie that my older sister introduced me to a lot of like cult movies. Like I watched The Crow because of her. I watched The Fall, In the Company of Wolves. She likes her and her boyfriend have like some pretty good taste in obscure, like not always B movies, but like artsy movies. And I was probably like 16 or 17, and she was like, you need to watch this movie, The Fall. Like, I know you're going to like it. And the way she hooked me was that Lee Pace is super cute. So I was like, okay, it has a cute guy in it. I'll give it a go. So I watched it, and I was just like, my little 16-year-old brain could not handle it. I was like, I don't give a shit about how cute he is. I'm bawling my eyes out right now. Like, he can be as cute as he wants, but this is just killing me. And you know, as you like watch it as you get older, I think it's a great movie to watch like at different periods in your life, because when you're that young, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be an artsy film lover, and I'm only gonna watch like underground movies and stuff like that. But as you get older, I relate a lot to Alexandria's character, especially in the eavesdropping sense. Like, she doesn't necessarily, she means to, like, she definitely knows what she's doing, but at other times she just kind of falls into these situations where something tragic is happening, or there's, not only does she not fully understand the English language, but body language is a huge thing. I think anybody can interpret that. but her like sneaking around corners and listening in on adults is something that like you don't get it until you're older. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think we've all like had that experience of like, oh, mom and dad just said something like earth shattering. I'm going to tuck that away in my subconscious because my little kid brain can't handle it right now. And I'm going to move on and then have a realization when I'm 30. So it's little stuff like that just makes this movie so human, and just, it blew my mind. It blew my mind, and it's been one of my favorite movies ever since.
Yeah, like you're saying, it does a really good job of like all this stuff is happening, and it's when you really pay attention, then you kind of understand all the things that are going on that she probably doesn't totally get, but it's happening right around her. All the stuff with Roy and like what happened with Roy, the main character, well, one of the main characters, and it's really just like that's how children kind of interact in the world. They're just kind of like going around doing the thing. They're happy. They're in this fantasy world, and all this adult drama stuff is happening.
Yeah, voices carry. Voices carry, and that information doesn't always leave you until you're much older. I would love to see. I know it'll never happen, but I would love to see a sequel of Alexandra being like a stunt woman in Hollywood.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Yeah, I would love to see some kind of continuation or some other kind of thing related to this.
A graphic novel would have been. I feel like this would have fit it perfectly.
Oh yeah, a graphic novel would be great. So, Aaron from Horror with Sir Sturdy, who I do a podcast with.
Oh, hello.
He's asking about what movie we're reviewing, The Fall. Aaron, and so actually, so Aaron and like we started making this thing where there's a giant wheel where you can randomly choose a movie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and we actually have a bunch of wheels that have different movies on it. But The Fall is on one of the wheels, so maybe someday I'll review it with them, which would be cool.
Hey, it's just another excuse to talk about this movie, and I could literally just... I want to watch it again. That's what this movie does for me.
I know, yeah. I watched it like a couple days ago, and I'm just like, I just get sucked in every time. Every time, I just love everything about it. It's so cool.
It's funny. So after I watched it, one of the movies I watched after it was The Princess Bride, and they're very similar in that story, like kind of sense. I'm like, oh my God, like it's obviously very, very different, like very different stories, very different, like everything, but it's still got that, like telling the story and then you see it. Like, I love that. I love it.
I think this other person on wants to know what you're drinking.
Oh, I'm drinking a frozen mocha from Panera Bread because I used to work for Panera Bread for 10 years and I hate them, but I am addicted to their frozen mochas. Yeah,
they got you.
Yeah, it's glorified hospital food.
Yeah. Hospital food.
It is. I've eaten everything that's there and it's glorified hospital food. It is expensive hospital food.
Oh my God. That's the worst. Oh my God. Ooh.
Yeah, if you want to spend $30 for a sandwich, soup, and drink, go to Panera Bread.
Aaron's inviting you on the podcast if we ever review The Fall on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like my first time I heard about this movie, I feel like I saw it pretty much right away because like I was big into like the cinephile community at that point. And so once the trailer for this movie came out, people were like, "Whoa, this is kind of out there," because it you can tell from the trailer that this is a unique experience. You know, you can see the sets and like all the like super epic stuff, and it looked like a unique experience. And at some point, I think at some point it was actually on Netflix. And I think I rented the DVD on Netflix. It was like the first time I watched it.
Nice. And
man, it's just one of those things. And I was immediately like, this movie's really good. Cause like, there's a lot of film. Like I feel like The Fall, and I've been thinking about this, like every year I kind of make a list of films that I'm really looking forward to. And some of them turn out good. Some of them turn out like whatever. The Fall was like a movie that exceeded my expectations for sure.
Every time I watch it, it exceeds my expectations, and it's one of those movies that like I think I find something new. I find something to love about it. Like the significance of oranges is very interesting. Like she's constantly receiving oranges and just
there's so much there.
There's so much there. It's just like I said, it's literally every frame is a painting, and also like this is one of those few movies that actually, at least I feel, portrays old Hollywood or that 1920s, almost 30s feel very well. Like it feels like this is actually like a little time capsule, like placed in that time period. It
does.
It feels very authentic. Like, because you know how sometimes Hollywood movies, they dress it up too much.
Make it very fancy and make it very
fancy, very just it looks very plastic. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it has almost like this weird glossiness over it and glorified and nostalgia, the 50s or like the 30s were so great. And it's like, they actually sucked. But
it was
still a thing.
It was people, there wasn't really electricity. There wasn't, it was kind of, it was kind of like the Stone Age or whatever.
To us, it was definitely the Stone Age. But this movie actually shows it because it's all average people. It's all blue collar people for the majority of the movie. And and
our main character is an immigrant, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And our main character is an immigrant, so we're seeing it also through how she sees it. How it's not glorified most of the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So one other thing I wanted to just talk about real quick. So the person who did the costumes for this film, Iko Ishioka.
Was that her?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's like one of the greatest costume designers in the history of film. Like straight up. Like straight up one of the greatest ever. So she won an Oscar for doing the costumes for Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Which are also really fucking brilliant.
There's a costume in Nurse Evelyn's wedding dress in the
film. My god!
I was like, looks like it's straight up out of Dracula. Like it was so intense. Like
she has a very distinct style, and like if you watch, because she also did The Cell, another Tarsem film. There's a couple other like Dracula. If you look at all the costumes. And they work together quite a bit. They also did like Immortals, and her costumes are always so good. They're always really distinct. They're very visually compelling, and it's just super brilliant. It's so brilliant, like her work. And this is one of the best. This is another thing. It's one of the best. There's so many outfits that are just like otherworldly,
Very otherworldly. Her use of color, or even sometimes the thing is, she does all of these really brilliant costumes, but then she can do something very minimalist, like the red or the blue bandit's costume, like Lee Pace's costume that he wears the majority of the film is very minimalist. There's tiny little pop of color, but it's just a black outfit for most of it. And then you have something like like the Indian's character, like green and beautiful and just like popping, and it's just like, oh god, it's just, this movie is just literally just like an orgasm for your eyes. I know, if I can say that. Like
it's just everything. Like the costumes are just, because they feel so like kind of mythical and like kind of cool, and because this is like before like the really big superhero stuff. Like I almost feel like I don't think people would consider this a superhero film. It's basically a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But the way that all the characters look, and like freaking Charles Darwin, who's just a nerdy white dude, and he's wearing this like massive
peacock coat. Yeah, it's just like, it's like, dude, why are you wearing that big ass coat? Like I can't imagine how hard that must have been for that actor in the desert the majority of the time. Like, god, I hope they had some water bottles nearby for him.
Or something, yeah. But the costumes are like insane. They're insane. There's just so many scenes where it's like, wow, that's. And like the thing that Evelyn is wearing with like it like parts like this.
Yep.
It's like
a veil, but it's also like one of those like old timey fans women used to wear. Like it's that kind of material, but then it's also just like this veil in front of her too. It's just like,
it's so cool. It's just so cool, and it's just like all of that is in this movie.
This movie has literally everything.
It has everything. It has literally everything. Okay, cool. So, all right. So yeah, let's start talking about the plot, basically. So this film starts, and this other thing too, right? So this film starts with one of the best title sequences ever of all time in the history of film.
Yes.
Where it's all like cut to this it's a Beethoven song. And one of the like great actually songs in cinema. Like I've seen it used in a lot of different circumstances. Yeah, Aaron can't wait to see the movie. You'll like it. It's very good. It's not. I made them. Have you ever watched Koyani Scotzi?
I don't believe so.
Okay. It's a crazy movie. I made him watch that. It has no narrative at all. It's a non-narrative film. Yeah. It's a non-narrative documentary. I made him watch that. So anyway, yeah, like this opening title sequence is like so cool.
Yeah, and it's also like a director who understands slow motion is so rare, because slow motion was just like, as soon as they discovered it, they were like, oh wow. Like I just finished watching all of the Rocky movies, and let me tell you, they did not understand slow motion. It was too much. But this whole scene is very, you know how old movies are really sped up? Like everyone's moving like really quickly. This is the opposite of that, which I really like. I don't know if that was on purpose or what, but I love that about it. Everyone's moving really slowly. You don't really know what's going on. And it's in stark contrast to the rest of the film, which is in big, bold colors, moving really quickly. We have this exciting story, but this slow burn like builds up to that.
Slow, and it's like, it's all these really cool camera moves. There's a lot. Just this opening title sequence alone.
And like,
there's so much cool stuff.
Even the water droplets a little bit, and you're not really sure what's going on, and everyone's kind of like, because no one's moving really quickly, so you kind of just have to figure it out a little bit. And as the movie progresses, more things become clearer. But sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's all good. Yeah, there's so many cool shots. Like you see a guy kind of emerge out of the smoke, and then you see people just like watching, looking at what's happening. Then you see a bridge with a train, and then you see they've got a crane that's pulling a horse out of the water. It's like, what? And it's all in black and white.
Yep.
Oh my god, it's so brilliant. And this is just the title sequence.
Yeah, this is just the opening sequence, which, like, again, you can tell a really good, exciting story without explosions going on all over the place. Who knew?
Yeah. And so, at the end of this, title sequence, the fall, and then it goes to Los Angeles once upon a time, and it's this hospital near an orange farm in Los Angeles in the 1920s. And we see the main character, Alexandria, and she has like her arms like kind of got in a cast with a little thing. And she's like trying to give this note to Nurse Evelyn. She like throws it out the window, but then it falls into the window of where Roy, this other character. And so she's like trying to find the note after she tries to give it to the nurse, which is super cute. And then we see like this is the other thing too that's so cool is like, it's one of those things where like there's all this stuff that happens in the world that then goes into the story world. And so like she sees this guy in one of those old school X-ray outfits, which is like it's pretty interesting, like the way that those outfits look, because like they're wearing metal. It's all metal. Yeah,
it's pretty. And that would scare me shitless probably as a kid too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean it's basically like the original Iron Man costume.
Yeah, it's big and it's clunky. It's pretty ominous looking, and it doesn't help that he just kind of stares at her for a second. I mean, honestly, there's nothing threatening from him at all, but it feels threatening if you're a kid and you don't really get it.
You don't understand. Yeah, you don't understand what X-ray machines are. Not only just as a kid, but I don't think most people probably really understood it. Anyway,
it was magic. Just magic.
Yeah.
She's a witch.
Yeah, exactly. Burner. So then Alexandria goes and finds Roy, and then she takes her her little note back, and then they kind of start having a conversation because he's like kind of bedridden. He's like, "Oh, how do you go to the party?" It's like, "Oh, I don't. They just let me go right here." It's like, "Oh, you're lying." It's very cute. And then Roy starts to tell her a story about Alexander the Great, and then we get like our first. I think this is you were talking about the shot of like Alexandra's like looking out the window or something, and then there's like a horse.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the silhouette of a horse, but but it's sort of like a pictograph or whatever. It's like upside down, and then the door opens, and she sees the horse out there. And the horse, it's really cool. And then that kind of brings her into this, this story
Mm-hmm.
where it's Alexander the Great in the middle of a desert. And yeah, they just do all this stuff that's like so cool. It's like he's like telling the story. It's like, yeah, Alexander the Great, but he didn't have a horse, so he gets off the horse. He was in a desert, and then like they go from it looks like Italy to a desert.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they shot in like the desert in Namibia. Yeah, it's really cool, and it's like immediately you get some really cool visuals.
Yes, you get
Like
some really cool visuals indeed.
There's one shot of a guy on a horse on top of a sand dune, and I don't know if they probably had the camera on like a airplane or something, and you could just see it going back and see how big the sand dune is.
Mm-hmm.
Just so like the way that they use locate, because like again, you can shoot in different places, and sometimes it just looks mundane. The way that he shot the locations, it feels like you're going to a different place.
Exactly.
And every place feels different. Exactly.
And every place feels different, and it really immediately immerses you in not just like how Alexandria is imagining this world or where Alexander the Great is. It also gives you a little like Roy's being creative. He's embellishing probably some things, but he's also you're getting a taste of how he describes things, which then in turn will influence how she imagines them too.
Yeah, totally. One other thing I wanted to point out is like the score for this film is actually really good. Yes. Like it's really right. It's really well done. It's kind of underrated because we get this really cool score when they go into this scene, and it's very epic. It's very like kind of brings you into this part of the story, and the score does a great job in every different story of like highlighting something about what's going on. And so basically Roy's like, oh yeah, and then Alexander dumped the water, and Alexander's just like, why? She didn't like that part of the story, basically.
No, she thought it was stupid.
Yeah, she thought it was stupid. Like, oh, I wouldn't do that. He was like, well, Roy's like, what would you do? Oh, I would just give them all a little bit. It's so cute, yeah. Which again,
a kid wouldn't get the metaphor or like the analogy or anything. She would just think, yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you throw out water if you need water?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I would drink the water, And then Roy's like, okay, come back tomorrow and I'll tell you an epic tale of love and adventure. Okay. So then Alexandra like comes back the next day, and but then this scene, like, so she comes to see him, and then all this stuff is happening in the background, and then we get a little bit of a sense. First off, we get more of like who are going to be the characters in her story world, like just random people that she meets. There's like a priest at this hospital. And he's going to be part of the story world. And then there's some other people that are just like in the hospital who are also going to be part of the story world. And then Roy, like a lot of the backstory kind of happens in the background. Like basically, Roy was a stunt man. He was injured doing a stunt, and he's kind of basically his girlfriend or someone that he was dating or he loved, something like that, kind of left him for like the star of the movie. And it's kind of
pussy.
Yeah. It's got him lovesick and also suicidal.
Oh yeah, he's incredibly depressed. He's
super depressed and suicidal. And so then, the two of them meet up again, and she's like, "Tell me the story now. Tell me the epic." And then he's like, "Okay, 4 men waited impatiently on a calm sea. In all, there were 5 of them, and they were all trying to get revenge on Governor Odious." And they all each swore to be responsible for Governor Odious's death. And then when we kind of get into the story world, it starts with we see the stars in the sky, and they're all on this reef out. What's crazy too is a lot of these are real places.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they're just so beautiful. They're on it's Butterfly Reef. It's in Fiji, I believe. It's in Fiji. It's very cool. So then Roy is telling the story of all these people who want revenge on Governor Odious. So the first one is this ex-slave Otabenga. And we get this really cool, again, the score is great. They do this kind of slave hymnal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him, and he's toiling in this kind of, it looks like a sugar plantation. And his brother dies, and then he gets pissed off, and he gets out of the shackles, burns all the sugar, and he swears revenge on Governor Odious for killing his brother. And then Alexandria says, "Oh, I like him."
I like really him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then the second one is the Indian. And so his story is that he's married to the most beautiful squaw in the world. And then Governor Odious was smitten by her. And so he somehow saw her face. So the Indian tried to lock her up in his tower or mansion or whatever it is. And but then she got stolen by Governor Odious. And she then gets put into the Labyrinth of Despair, another crazy, cool, real location.
Oh my God, yeah. I was like, yeah, that looks like terror and Karna. Holy shit.
Yeah.
All these weird intertwining steps and everything like that. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And like you said, this is just a couple minutes in the movie.
Yes.
And we get some of the absolutely coolest stuff. These locations are just so, it just makes you feel like you're in a fantasy world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, these aren't sets though. This is real places.
It's a real place, yeah. And so then to get out of the Labyrinth of Despair, she jumps off a tall cliff or something and kills herself. And the Indian, he swears to get revenge for what he did. Now a funny thing too here. So this is where one of the things that started is the misunderstandings, basically.
Yes, this was what I was talking about before. This was it.
So she, one of the people who she picks fruit with is an Indian from India. Now, Roy, who's an American, thinks of Indian Native American. But it's
and he does cowboy movies, mostly, too.
Yeah, exactly. But it's her story in her head. And so the Indian is a dude from India.
Which again, there's that kid logic. That's all she knows. That's the only thing she has to associate with Indian and India. So it makes perfect sense. So So when he's telling the story, and I just love that every time. It gets me. I'm just like, that is so this is exactly what would happen. If you're a little kid and you're an immigrant and you have no association to what Native Americans are or were, and your only association is to the word Indian is the country of India, this is something that you would relate it to. And I love that.
Totally. You would just think of Indian people, and that's exactly what she does. And then, so the Indian is the guy from India.
Which makes me think, I wonder how this story looked in Roy's mind. I wonder how this looked in his head. Probably more of a cowboy western, I would assume.
Yeah, it's probably, and then the bandit would kind of look more like Jesse James or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Or the Lone Ranger or some. I would assume.
Yeah, yep, like the Lone Ranger. That's a good one too. Yeah, but it's her story, and so the Indian is from India, and then so the third person is Luigi, who basically Governor Odious kind of exiles him because he creates these explosives that are too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get this really cool shot of him in like, it's like Italy or Rome or something like that. And he's just like walking around and no one will talk to him. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool stuff. And so then because, you know, he's like, oh, even his priest wouldn't talk to him. So then he
went too far.
Went too far, yeah. So then he has to get revenge on Governor Odious. And the fourth is Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin and his little monkey. I forget the Wallace the monkey. Yeah, and what's kind of funny here is like Wallace the monkey is supposed to represent, I forget, it's this other guy who was like around at the same time, and they kind of, both of them kind of together discovered the ideas of evolution, but Darwin got a lot of the credit for it. And so the monkey's giving him all these ideas basically. Mm-hmm. And so only he can understand the monkey, and the monkey's like, oh, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's taking all the credit because it's a monkey, and, you know, a monkey can't be like, hey, no, I'm the one who invented evolution.
Exactly.
And so him and the monkey are looking for this butterfly, this rare butterfly, Americana exotica. And one day, Governor Odious sends them a dead one. So they're like, okay, screw you. We're going to get revenge on you.
Which I think, out of all of their, like, backstory as to why they don't like Governor Odious, this is, like, just kind of one of the meanest. Because he just sends them a dead butterfly for, like, just to be a jerk, basically.
Yeah. He's an asshole. Governor Odious is an asshole. Right? He's just a terrible person. I think he just doesn't like monkeys.
He was just not like monkeys.
Yeah. And so then the fifth one is the Gap-Toothed Bandit. And so they were brothers who separated, and then Governor Odious captured the brother and was threatening to kill him. And their mission of these five guys is not just to get revenge on Governor Odious, but to save the Gap-Toothed Bandit's brother. So there's like the blue bandit and like the black bandit. And the other character is the black bandit. And another thing that we saw earlier in the film was Alexandria has this little trinket box. And in the box, there's like pictures of, you know, a bunch of stuff that she has, you know, little toys that she's taken. People have given to her. And one of them is like a picture of her dad. He's got like a gap tooth. And so Roy like makes the character, the bandit character, kind of like her dad at first, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up is like this film does a lot of cool stuff with like these kind of match cuts. So like when you see them and they kind of goes to the butterfly reef, like you see a butterfly and then it like kind of match cuts into the actual place. Mm-hmm. It's just so cool.
It's pretty good. They do a few of those that are really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So then Wallace the monkey has an idea. He's like, oh, hey, you should do this thing. And, you know, we see Charles Darwin take credit for it. And so they decide to hitch a ride on some elephants.
Because the gap-toothed bandit can't swim.
Can't swim, yeah. So he's stuck until they can find a way out. And then this elephant comes to help them out. And we get these shots in the water of an elephant with these other actors swimming around.
Yeah, and I don't think those were stuntmen. I think those were actually like the characters or the actors like swimming around this massive elephant, which are already imposing on land. Yeah. And then you put one in the water, and it's funny. You put it in the water, and it's still large and, you know, massive, but elephants are actually really graceful in the water. Like you wouldn't. Yeah, they are. You wouldn't like equate the two. Yeah. And they just kind of like bumble around, and it's just a really cute scene. And I love the gap-toothed bandit and how excited he is, and he's like, "Yay! Thank you, my beautiful friend." Yeah, this is a great idea. You're a genius.
You're a genius. Yeah, it's great. He has his accent. Yeah, we should like. So, what's his name? Lee Pace is like, he's really great in this movie.
Oh yeah.
He's really great. And like before this, he had been in he was in this TV movie where he like played basically, I mean, I don't think people would call it that at the time, but it was like a transgender person who was like an ex-military person.
I've never seen it, but I have heard of it before.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but that was kind of like the first thing he was known for. And then he did this. And then it's kind of interesting because, like, basically the right people saw this film, and then he was in a bunch of other stuff after that.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting that he did this, and he went on to be in, I don't know if you've ever seen Pushing Daisies. It's one of my favorite short-lived shows. It ends on such a cliffhanger, and it's super unfair because it didn't get renewed for, I believe it only had 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Great cast. Brian Fuller was the creator of it. And it's a weird show. It's a very weird show. And it's not exactly like The Fall, but there's definitely similar, like, fairy tale, otherworldly elements that are at play. And he was so good in that. Very, very good.
Yeah, he's so first off, he's like very tall and very kind of like
sinewy.
The handsome. Yeah, he's like got the handsome American look, you know?
Yeah, that's one way of putting it,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
The man is gorgeous. Like, he has this neck. I'm sorry. I love that the costume designers put him in things that make his neck look great, because this man has got a neck like an elk. And it's just, like, I did not like the Hobbit movies, but he looked so good.
Yeah, like, where he plays an elf, yeah.
His costumes are just on point, and he is just living it. And it's great.
Yeah, totally. And I think that basically he ended up in The Hobbit because of this film. Like,
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, he was like, what's his name? Saw this film and was like, oh yeah, I want to cast him as that character. So it's very cool. And yeah, he's brilliant. And like, one of the things also, like, in the there's also a couple of commentary tracks. So there's a track with Tarsem, and there's a track with Dan Gilroy, one of the co-producers, and Lee Pace talking about the film. And one of the things that's really cool is, like, Lee Pace talking about acting with the child actress and, like, how kind of authentic she was, but also, like, how she didn't. There's some, like, small things she didn't get. Like, they talk about, like, when they're doing these scenes in the hospital, how she's kind of, like, moving away from the light in a way to almost obscure her face. And so Lee Pace had to, like, kind of make sure that she was lit well. You know, because like if she's in the dark, you're not gonna really be able to see her the right way.
That's just like, because one of the funny things about kids that I'm slowly learning is that they like being the center of attention on their terms. If you put them in a situation where, like, smile for the camera, or I need you to go do this activity that everyone's going to be watching you doing, they're going to resist that to an extent. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's very funny that she's trying to, like, maybe she's a little shy. Maybe it's in her eyes. Maybe she doesn't want to be the center of attention at that moment in time. And that's really sweet. That's so cute. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's, like, super cognizant and, like, trying to, like, kind of accommodate her. Mm-hmm. Because her acting is actually really good. It's very authentic.
It's so authentic. It's so lovely. And their chemistry is just, you can tell sometimes when, like, someone's playing a parent, they're not being the parent in a movie. And not that he's her parent or anything, but there's, like, this, you get a sense that this actress trusts Lee Pace. It's like, I'll sit in the bed with him and listen to him tell me a story. Like, that's totally fine. It's very sweet.
Yeah, like, for real. Yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. It's great. So continuing with their little adventure. So the 5 of them, they come to this, like, sandbar after the elephant kind of drops them off. And we get some, by the way, like, really insanely cool shots here, like stuff that people probably wouldn't appreciate. So again, like, it's one thing to, like, be at a sandbar, right? It's another thing, like, you can tell this wherever they are is in the middle of some, like, mountain range or something. Mm-hmm. It's, like, so beautiful. And then there's a tree in the middle of this sandbar.
It's ugly. It's old. It's all burnt up. It's just not. It's not an attractive tree.
Yeah. By the way, they had to basically ferry this tree to where they put it, and then burn it. It's crazy. And so they go to this place, and then someone bursts out of the tree. This character, the Mystic, and the Mystic, this cool dude. And he kind of talks in a really kind of funny way. It's like, it's not English, like
it's gobbledygook.
Yes, it's gibberish. Yeah. And so the Mystic offers to help them fight Governor Odious, but then they decline because they think he can't really help them. So then Otabanga gets a fish with his bow and arrow, and they're like, oh, we'll use this fish to get in, to trick him, to get revenge on him. So then we get this cool sequence where they're at this building. I mean, in real life, it's like a mosque. And so, for us, it just looked like a temple or something. And then we get to see his Governor Odysseus, I don't know, henchmen, basically.
Yeah, I feel like they have that sounds like hyena noises that are coming out of them. That's what it sounds like. I like that.
It's a hyena noise, yeah.
I love hyenas.
Yeah, it's cool. So then they go to the temple and oh, I'll give you fish. Let me in, and I'll give you fish. And they're like, okay, yeah, come up. And we get this cool kind of fight scene or whatever.
It's pretty good.
Where the Indian and all of them are killing these henchmen. Yeah, it's very cool. And again, the location is so beautiful.
It is. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It is stunning. It is stunning. How
I feel like steps are used a lot in this movie, staircases and ascension points, I guess, are just very, very are used a lot, especially when the Indian's wife is trying to get herself out of that labyrinth.
Yeah.
There's just staircases, and they're all built into everything's very connected to the earth. There's a lot of earthy tones. There's a lot of things connected to the soil, and the Mystic pops out of a tree, for Christ's sakes. It's very much an earthy kind of. This movie just has everything, because I had never thought of that before.
It does have everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So then, we get some really cool stuff of the Indian fighting them, and then there's this cool shot of Otabanga shoots his arrow, and then the Indian kind of dodges it.
Oh my god, I love that shot. It's it's kind of Matrixy, but it's it's almost cooler, I think, in my opinion. It's just it just
and it just goes over him. Yeah, it's really cool.
That is a shot I'm pretty sure that's in the trailer, because that is such a trailer shot. It's just that's a hook right there.
Yeah, that's in the trailer. Yeah. Yeah, and we get, this is our first taste of the adventure and stuff of this story. And then they go into this temple, right? So they go into the temple, and Luigi's oh, I'll blow up the door, and he's let
the door spin back, my friends.
Yeah. Charles Darwin's no, I got this. I have a key. He opens up the thing, and inside the Mystic is he's killed hundreds of them.
He's standing on this pile, and he's you want my help, bro? This is my resume right here.
Yeah. And there's this really cool shot where they're looking through the keyhole, and you just see bodies flying.
It's a really good shot.
It's really cool.
The use of CGI is very minimal in this film, but when it's used, it's showing the power of the Mystic. He's a badass.
Yeah, he's a super badass. Yeah. So, what did you think of this first little adventure?
It's good. It's a really great appetizer. It's a really good appetizer to what eventually will become the whole meal, and it is delicious, and you will love it. Because you see all of them working together. They can work together. That's the thing that I like about these characters. As much as they are fictional within the story, they work really well together. There's this camaraderie, and you get a sense of how powerful Governor Odysseus's henchmen are. But our heroes still defeat the villain, and it's great. It's a great introduction to their badass adventure.
Yeah. It's very cool. But then, so now we start to get why Roy is doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he asks Alexandria, oh, hey, can you just like touch my big toe and see, if I can guess which toe you're touching? And so then she's like, wait, basically he like cuts off the story like right at the good part to get her to do something so that he'll continue telling the story. And so then she does it, right? And so he's just like testing to see if basically if he's ever going to be able to use his legs again.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she does it, and then it's like, oh, which toe are you touching? And so she like touches his like his little toe, and then he's like, are you touching my big toe? And she's like switches over to the big toe. He's like, yeah, you are. But then Roy like gets kind of mad. He's like, did you lie to me? And she, again, this is like one where she's really good because she's totally like kind of like confused, but also like she's trying to like kind of lie, but like you could just kind of see it on her face that she's
been caught, but she's committed to the lie at this point. And she knows that if she says yes, I was touching your big toe, the story will continue because that's all she really wants at this point. And it gives the audience a sense of like, we know Roy is bedridden, pardon me, but we don't know the extent of the damage at this point. And when you're watching it, you're just kind of like, oh, you can't feel anything. And it's, you give it a sense of like why he is depressed and why he's not really in the mood to live, which is unfortunate. But no, her acting is really, really good because she's committed to the lie at this point. She just wants more of the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so then Roy gets like really mad, and so he kind of takes it out on the characters in the story. And so then they go into this, and we go back to the story. They go into this building, and it's like, oh yeah, Odious tortured and killed his brother and hung all of his companions from the ceiling, and you get this really cool, but really dark shot of like these
like
bodies.
Rated R Cirque du Soleil shit or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, and it's so brilliant. I don't know. So like Tarsem talks about like, so like there's a couple shots where they're like running through a building. So that building was another mosque that they shot in. But it was like, they only had like 2 hours to shoot. And basically it's almost impossible to shoot a movie there. They just don't let people do it. And I think when you actually see the chandelier, it's like a different place. But that was so cool.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's a bunch of bodies, and then there's like a light. There's like a light coming in from the side, so you can really see what's going on. And it's in this, and it's like there's paintings on the walls and stuff, and the ceiling. It's like it's really dark, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's very inhuman, and it's unsettling to see people hanging from a ceiling, no matter like why they're hanging there. But it's an intense shot, and again, it's what Alexandria is imagining, but it's what Roy is telling her as well. And he does tend to like take things out on the characters because he knows it'll not hurt her, but he's pissed.
So by the way, like I just kind of thought of this now. It's kind of interesting, like, we talk about like how Roy imagines it one way and she imagines it another. So if you think about like them being hung, again, in like the cowboy kind of stuff, it'd be like hung from the gallows, right?
Exactly.
But she like imagines these people.
Kids have a weird imagination. Kids have a very, very weird imagination. I don't know where she got that from, where she imagined that. I kind of don't want to know, honestly, but unfortunately, Alexandria does seem to be a child who has seen some dark things in her life. But yeah, it's very, very strange. But again, it makes sense that Roy would say that they're hung, but not in the sense that she's necessarily imagining.
Yeah, because she's basically a refugee, actually, if you think about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because wherever she's from, like they talk about that when the two of them first talk. And she shows like all of her trinkets and stuff and her picture of her dad, where basically she says they left because there was unrest, and I guess they had a farm and their farm got burned down by, seems like a pogrom or something like that, something bad, something real bad. So yeah, that's probably why some of this stuff kind of comes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really dark imagery. So anyway, so then they go back into the story after that, and we get another cool transition. So it's like, you know, I forget, I think he spills some water or something like that, and then the water turns into like the blood on this sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's this is another really cool sequence, this shot, where they put this, I don't know it's like a banner, right? It's just a giant banner.
It's a giant banner. It's a giant sheet. It's a lot of cloth being suspended in air, basically.
Yeah, so like that's the other thing about this movie, like that whole shot of like when they have that massive sheet, the banner, and they're in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, "I will destroy him," and they keep going back and back and back, and it's like, how do you even think up something like that? You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea. But again, it's one of those instances where it's like, that looks literally like a painting. Like, it looks like a modern, abstract, whatever, like painting that just...
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Right? It's like indescribable how cool that whole sequence is.
You just have to watch it. You just need to watch it. You
just have to watch it. It's like... It's so cool. It's just so cool, and it's so brilliant. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, again, it's like one of those things why I'm so glad that this movie exists, because I can't think of anything else in a narrative film that does this type of visual imagery this well.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's just bold color, where there is not really a whole lot of like bold color, because you have like this big white sheet or banner suspended, and then towards the bottom it's just like coated in just blood. Like there's blood just like kind of like smashed in kind of a thing. And yeah, it's like, is that a fucking Jackson Pollock painting? Am I in a Salvador Dali painting? Like, it's a clash of like art mediums that is very, very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's very much so like one of those kind of 20th century paintings. But then we're in it. We're in the story of how this thing came about.
Yep.
Which is crazy. Yeah, and so then another part of it is like, so basically Alexander's like, you know, oh, have him speak like you, basically. And he's like, oh, well, he speaks like your dad. It's like, oh, my dad's dead. It's like, oh, okay. So then the bandit becomes Roy, because she wanted, you know, she wants the main character to be Roy, you know, the person that she's smitten by. And so yeah, they're in like they're in the middle of nowhere. They're trying to figure their way out. So like another thing too is, you know, this scene they there's something that was really cool that ended up being in like the deleted scenes. In this sequence where they're lost, there's some really cool stuff, and there's one shot that's really cool where I don't know what they had like a crane or something, and it's craning between like 5 different people. It's really cool, but it ended yeah.
God.
And it ended up not in the movie, but yeah, it's so cool. Every shot, everything that they do in this movie is like super brilliant. And so then the mystic, like he like leads them to fertile soil, and so they're following him. And this is another really brilliant shot of like, so like at first they're kind of in this desert area, and then there's like a patch of grass, and then the mystic and Charles Darwin are kind of running through a bunch of grass. I really like that shot where it's like it kind of swings with them, and then they go into the grass and he's running.
Yeah, he's like, he's leading really us to greener pastures, and he literally does.
Yeah,
like,
he does.
Within the desert, there's like not an oasis, but there's just like all this fertile green, very green grass.
Very green.
And it's really, really pretty. I think the mystic also eats like the map, but the map is poisonous.
Yeah.
And Darwin keeps trying to warn him. He's like, no, the faster you run, the faster the poison works.
Yeah.
And that's when they meet like this tribe or this clan of mystics. I'm assuming they're all like mystics.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, and that's a real tribe too. I know they were in the film Baraka. Yeah, it's a real tribe, and that's a real ritual that they do. I'm not sure exactly what they do it for, I mean, at this point, they kind of, I think that they, after they did Baraka, I think there was, let's just say there was a high demand for their services.
Okay.
And so they probably kind of do it for, it's kind of like the Haka. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Is the Haka it's like a traditional Hawaiian dance, or
It started in New Zealand, so the Maori. It's a Maori dance.
Sorry.
It's more like a Maori war dance. It's very cool. But like it's kind of like that dance is well known because like the New Zealand rugby team will do it before every match.
That scared the shit out of me.
Yes.
I'm sure that's why they do it.
That's why they do it. That is exactly why they do it.
I've known some rugby players in my time, and those guys are intense.
Yeah. The Haka is really very cool thing. So yeah, and then we get this montage. This montage is so cool. Like we were talking about before, there's some scenes where it's just like really quick shots of like different stuff. This montage is like great. It's all over the place. They're in Egypt. They're in Italy and near the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I feel like they're in New York at some point. They're just like everywhere. And it's like, how did this movie get all this stuff?
I know, and most of these shots are only like a second, 2 seconds, like long, and you're like, yeah, we got to fly out to this country, get them in costumes, get the lighting, clear the streets for 2 seconds of footage.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so cool. Yeah.
I mean, some of those guys had to be like stand-ins or body doubles. I can't imagine like the actors were always there for it, but it doesn't even really matter. It's just it's so good.
Yeah. It's just the dedication that went into doing this stuff, because like you said, they went to Egypt, they went to Giza and were at like near the pyramids. They went to Italy. They went all over the place. They went to all these places to get these shots, and it just shows you like they're at the Great Wall of China. Like they're literally at the Great.
It's crazy. It's so cool. Sorry, real quick. Can you hear a loud noise coming from my end?
I can't really hear it.
Okay, good. It's just the landscapers, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to interfere too much. Sorry.
Yeah, I think this does a good job of like kind of taking everything that's not our voice and kind of blocking it out for the most part.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, and so then at the end of this, we get this really like one of my absolute favorite shots of this film. So it's the 5 of them on a horseback on top of this cliff.
Yep.
And then there's this wagon being pulled by these people, and you see a couple of people on horseback, and it's like a really long shot, and you can just see like everything, and it's like, wow, like.
And again, it's like a pop of color, like the carriage is like red amongst all of this like pasty or yellow or orange sand and everything, and it's just like, oh, this is so pretty.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, and again, it's so fairy tale, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like a fairy tale, like something that would happen in an epic story.
Oh, absolutely. When he says I'm going to tell you an epic, he does not lie. Like, yeah. It is so epic, and it does literally have everything, like, and everything you could ever want in a movie. If you're just into costumes, if you're just into acting, if you're just into cinematography, it has all of it, darling.
Yeah, it has all of it. Yeah. If you just want to see beautiful locations, whatever it is, like this movie has it. And so then they're all on horseback, so they're like, okay, let's do it, and they're all about to go and fight Governor Odious' men, and they expect that Odious is there. And then he says, "Tell me, Alexander, do you speak English?"
I know. I love how that stops it. It's like, just stop it. And that's another moment that kind of reminds me of The Princess Bride, like the shrieking eel scene when he like interrupts it. It's really good. I like that.
And she's like, "You always start with the good part." He's like, "Okay, I need you to get me this bottle of morphine. I need you to get it for me." And she's like, "Yeah, MORPHIN 3. Okay, I can get that for you." And so then he sends her off to get the pills. And he's like, "I need the pills to finish the story." Okay. So after a little bit of consternation, she does it. So she sneaks around, right? She gets into wherever the little place where they have the drugs are. She goes and she takes the pills. And then we get this really kind of dark scene where It's like a mom seeing her child die or something like that.
Yeah, and that's again one of these moments where like Alexandria definitely eavesdrops on things that she's not supposed to, but this is one of those moments where she doesn't. First of all, she does not. She's not supposed to be there already, but like now she's in a situation where she doesn't want to see what she's seeing. Like eavesdropping will eventually get you into trouble. And it's a very dark, very sad scene because you hear what the doctor's telling him, like he had snake bites all over his hand, like there's nothing he can do. Like this kid was dead on arrival, and it's very, very upsetting. And the mom gives her one. It's one of those like, there's a few shots of that startle Alexandria, like when the door opens and she sees the horse, or this moment when the mom like looks up and kind of hisses at her, almost, or it's just kind of like a grief being verbalized, and it really upsets her, and she's really shaken by it.
And so then she kind of talks with this other old guy who's and he kind of tries to help her.
He's really sweet to her, and he takes his teeth out and makes little chomping noises and stuff, and kind of tries to make her feel better. And he's like, because she peed her pants basically, and he's like, I do that all the time. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And he tells her like, oogly boogly, go away.
So then Alexandria comes back to Roy. It's like, oh, here you go. And she gives him a bottle with 3 pills in it. He's like, what? Where's the other pills? Oh, I threw them in the toilet. Like, why'd you throw them in the toilet? You told me MORPHIN 3 pills.
So I brought you 3 pills.
I brought you 3 pills. And he's like, damn it. And so then they go back to the story. And so then we get this, more adventure, more fighting. The Indian like frees the slaves. He like breaks the shackles. It's really cool. And then we got this really cool stunt where like one of the guys falls off the horse, one of the henchmen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was funny too. Like on the commentary, they were all like, they thought that dude was like dead.
He looks dead the way he lands. Like
he lands on his neck. Yeah,
he literally lands on his neck, and it's just like, oh my god. And it's funny that Roy's a stuntman, and then you get a lot of these really great stunts, which I really appreciate stuntmen. I feel like there should be a category at the Oscars for stuntmen, personally.
100%. There should be like best stuntman and best stunt team.
Absolutely. I totally agree. They're very underappreciated and quite frankly undervalued sometimes. But yeah, it's a really amazing stunt. I was like, am I watching someone die and they kept it in the movie? Like, and they're not telling us.
They thought he was dead, but the guy was fine. They said he popped right back up after that fall where he fell on his neck.
No, I can't imagine he can see very well in those helmets either. And you're in the sun, you're on horseback, it's hot.
Yeah, it's just you're like, and then you just follow.
And there's so many different categories of stuntmen. You know what I mean? Like you have your like star stuntman, and then you have like motorcycles, cars, horses, animals. It's like you have to rely on the fact that the horse has to fall in a certain way so that you don't die falling off.
Yeah. Horses are very dangerous.
They're very unpredictable. And I was actually talking to my boyfriend. We watched an episode of Bob's Burgers where Tina goes to a horse place, and the horse is a dick to her, and he's like, horses are dicks like that. If they don't want you to ride them, they will drag you across a fence. They will walk under tree branches. Like they can be assholes.
I saw this. I don't know where. I was just on Instagram, and I saw it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. So it was this girl who was like, I don't know where it was, but there was like like a barn with a horse. Oh, and so she's trying to take a selfie with this horse. The horse fucking slapped her in the face with its like straight up. It's funny because like you see the whole thing, you see it go like like boom.
Yeah, horses are very powerful. They're not totally docile, and they're not as stupid as people think that they are. No. My aunt has been bitten by a horse, and it is not pretty looking. It is one of the most horrible injuries I've ever seen before, because she's also been kicked. She's been thrown. My aunt was a huge horse lady, or equestrian.
Yeah, equestrian.
But
you can't be mad at horses for that. People would do the same. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, a horse, look, a horse is a very powerful animal.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, that's why we have the term horsepower for a car. Like, the equivalent of how many horses is this machine?
On top of the fact that they were literally once the fastest way to get from A to Z. Like, I think a horse can go up to like 35 miles per hour, if fast horse. But like, they're very, like, I love horses personally, but I would not want to fuck with one of them. There's a video of a guy whipping a horse. Like, he's definitely abusing this animal. And this horse straight up kicks him in the chest. Like, just boom. And he goes flying. It's like, don't fuck with a powerful animal that's 6 feet tall. Like,
you have to be very careful with horses because they, like you said, they'll bite you, they'll kick you, they'll basically tell you to get the hell away from me.
They'll throw you. They will throw you.
Yeah, they will throw you. Like, they don't mess with them. You know, respect them. Respect them. Give them their space.
Oh yeah, just like with any animal, you know, like, it's domesticated, but that doesn't mean if it knows it's not being respected. The animals pick up on energy just like we do. They're just way more in tune with it. But yeah, I feel like we're gonna get so sidetracked with this movie because there's so many things. Yeah, there's so many things to get sidetracked, and it's all for love. It's all for love. But that, going back to what we were talking about, that stunt is very intense and very, very good. And again, the slow motion of it is just the way the dirt kicks up. Like, you see the horse keep going and he's falling back, and it's just like,
because he falls like this. He falls backwards. Like, wow.
This movie's almost like water. It just kind of flows. Yeah. If I can sound a little pretentious.
Yeah, it just like flows from scene to scene and from moment to moment. It's just like so brilliant. And so then they're expecting Governor Odious is like in this caravan or whatever this thing is, and it opens up, and then first this little kid comes out, and then the next thing we see is Princess Evelyn come out, and it's like, could you imagine, like, I know your sister's having a wedding, right?
Yes.
Imagine your sister wears what she's wearing.
That'd be pretty intense. That would be a pretty intense getup my sister would be wearing for her wedding. Like, that would be intense.
Imagine you wear that, and then like when you finally kiss, like they part the veil like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's wearing like one of the craziest, like one of the coolest costumes I've seen. Like, it's ridiculous. The other thing too is, again, it's super fantastical. It's so fairy tale.
It is. It's very exaggerated. But again, minimalist at the same time. Like, especially most of the landscape. Like, when they're in the desert, there's nothing to create much of anything with, because it's all like yellow or orange and stuff like that. But then you include things that are out of the element of the landscape you're filming in, and it just makes it fantastical, like you said. It just makes it beautiful.
Because all of their costumes, right? Like, because the five of them, their costume, the five of them, their costumes are so cool too. And they're also like distinct, but they all feel like larger than life characters.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the way that they look.
Even the Mystic, you slap some grease paint on him, a wig and a doohickey, and it's like, this guy's he came out of a tree. That makes sense. Like, all of their costumes fit their character, which I love. Yeah.
It's so cool. And so then so Aaron's excited to watch this movie at some point. So then we cut to basically the Taj Mahal. Like, they're in India, and this whole the other thing too I wanna mention. So like when she shows up and she gets out of this thing, we get this great score for her. This very kind of sweet serenade of music. And it's like very angelic singing. It's beautiful. And then like I said, they go to it's like a palace in the middle of a lake.
Which is so fairy tale-esque, mind you.
Like, this is great. Like, isn't this just like totally bonkers? This is all in this movie.
It is so crazy. And palaces or castles or mansions on lakes are actually not that uncommon. It's actually a thing. Like, there's one in, I think it's France, or maybe it's England, and it's oh, this guy literally built it for the woman he loved, and it's like got all of this romanticism around it. It's supposed to be haunted. It was used as a convalescent home during World War I. It's got all of this amazing history to it, and it's one of the most beautiful. They call it a house. I'm like, it's a mansion. And, like,
exactly.
It's gorgeous. Like, it's just so beautiful. It's very like it's got that aristocracy like mystery to it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, what I love about this whole next part of the sequence too is like, because basically then it kind of becomes this love story, with the bandit and Lady Evelyn.
Rory's projecting a little bit.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. And so what's interesting, right, is that they then go to these locations that are all, these are all places built by people who were in love or something, And it just, I don't know, it's just perfect.
No, they all have a very romantic feel. Like the locations match how the story is being told in a very succinct way that I feel like Tarsem Singh is a romantic or something. Like he's so many different things. Like I feel like this guy's like a philosopher.
Yeah.
He understands kids. Like he's a romantic. He's a scholar. He's a storyteller.
Yeah.
Like he's so many things.
Yeah.
And he directed a Lady Gaga music video. Like, who is this man?
I know.
Where does he get off being so great?
I know, just doing all this stuff, and it's like you have to be someone who really knows a lot about all this stuff, because like obviously he knows a lot about paintings, and because like a lot of this is like taking paintings and making it cinematic, and then also just to be able to know about all these places, right? Like, oh, I'm doing part of a movie and now it's like a love story. Let me just go to every building in India where someone built a thing because they were in love. And so I can shoot at this this palace in the middle of a lake, And then there's like that scene where they're like at a different palace, I think, and I'm pretty sure it's like overlooking the Taj Mahal. And there's like a little kind of bed or something there. And they're just all hanging out. It's just like so fucking cool.
It's so cool.
It's just so cool.
It's so
because like it just says everything without having to do anything, right?
Oh god, yes.
You see them all hanging out, and you see the Taj Mahal, and you see them in these beautiful costumes, and it's everything, right? It just says everything.
There's even a shot of her covered in doves. Like she has like 2 or 3 doves just like hanging, and doves represent like marriage and love and all this other stuff in a palace made for love. And it's just like it's just so perfect. Yeah, it's just so perfect. Like, it's just so perfect. And it's just like you don't need to say anything else. No, you can't. The movie says it all.
It says it all. It really, and it's like that's the thing that this movie does so well. Is that it's all of the sum of all of this stuff just tells you this epic, beautiful story. And it's not frivolous. It's not superfluous. It's like actually enhancing the story on every level. And that took a lot of attention to detail, a lot of time, a lot of it just took everything.
Yeah. And it's like you put it at the beginning when we started filming. You said it was a labor of love, and this movie oozes love. I feel like Tarsem Singh was put in front of a geography book as like a 2-year-old, and it imprinted on him. And because this is a man who I feel like appreciates different cultures, he appreciates his own culture. He wants to just incorporate. He wants to make a giant soup, and it's just amazing. I don't know why I keep comparing this movie to food, but it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant, and this part of the movie, it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I don't know what else to say.
I have a crush on this movie. It's great. Like, I have a huge crush on it. Like, it's great.
Like, if there's any movie where I'm like a strong advocate, this is probably like number 1 of like I advocate for this movie and like try to actively proselytize for people to watch it.
Yeah, and it's a movie that it wouldn't have worked as it might have worked as a book, possibly. You can't turn it into a TV show. You can't really. The whole movie is a painting, so it doesn't really work with that. You have to have it in the medium of filmmaking. You have to. Like, this is lightning struck so many times for this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it got all of the lightning, all of it, all of the magic, the majesty. Like, it's my favorite fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so brilliant, and it's so everything, and it's still underrated somehow. I feel like it still doesn't get enough. I know. Okay, so then anyway, I forget what happens, but there's some kind of break in the story, and then Alexandria is kind of running around doing her thing, and so she meets the movie star, and she kind of also meets the person who broke up with Roy, and she's kind of in this car crying for some reason. Yeah, she's unhappy.
Like, maybe you shouldn't have broken up with your boyfriend because he broke his back, and you're in a loveless, shitty relationship with a guy who looks like an asshole. He just looks like an asshole.
He does, yeah. He looks like Andy Garcia's like douchey brother, basically. He does. I mean, he looks like Andy Garcia.
He's kind of got the Valentino thing going, but not. And it's just, he looks smarmy, as my mom would put it. And it's not like he's rude to Alexandria. It's not like he's being mean to her, but he just looks like a dick. And one of the things about this movie is that anyone who comes to really visit Roy is trying to convince him, I'm assuming, to take some kind of settlement.
Yes.
With this, and Roy seems pretty reluctant because, hey, money can't fix my back. So.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening, because then again, this is another thing where around Alexandria all this stuff is happening about the real world, and she's kind of not keyed into it.
Yeah, all this really adult real life drama is playing out that like we're picking up on for sure, but like she can't understand it. She's just too young.
Yeah, and so basically, Roy did this stunt of jumping onto a horse from a train from the bridge. Insane.
Yeah, right? And they kind of say, oh, you did it just to impress the girl and stuff like that, and we're going to use the shot of the actor doing it, basically. And I think that's what's kind of like killing him too a lot.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, you need to get over the suicide thing, is what they said to him.
What a great advocate for mental health the 30s were, huh?
Oh, you were dead. I mean.
Oh man, like, get over it. Rub some dirt on it. You'll be fine.
Especially, like, if you were disabled, like.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, my favorite thing is, you can't see your emotional trauma. Get over it.
Yeah. And so then Alexandria, like, comes to her again, and she says to him, I hope I never get better. I want to stay with you forever. Aww. Yeah.
Because there was a scene with her mother and the doctor.
Yes.
Where the doctor's basically discouraging the mother from having Alexandria continue to climb trees and pick the oranges, because that's, I'm assuming, how she broke her arm in the first place. And we already saw a little boy who died from picking oranges. Like, there was a snake, there was something. It's really dangerous. And, child labor laws, who gave a shit about those?
Yeah, they didn't exist at this point.
They didn't exist. Actually, did you know in the UK, there were more laws protecting animals than there were for children at one point?
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary.
Really scary. And there is a language barrier that Alexandria takes advantage of and uses to her own advantage. Like, her mother has a lot of dialogue, and then Alexandria just tells the doctor, she said okay.
Yeah. She said to give you this piece of bread.
Yeah, and the doctor's like, Alexandria, did she ask me a question? She's like, no, that's how we speak. I love that.
Yeah, that's how we speak. Yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah.
And so then, that was a really great scene, because it just kind of shows you a bit about her, and she's also getting, like, kind of better at, I guess, being a bandit, as it were.
He's influencing her a little bit.
Yeah. Her being sly. And so then Roy's like, okay, I need you to do me another favor. So my neighbor, who I hate, he stole my pills, and so you need to get me his pills out of his cabinet. So be a good bandit and do that for me. And then she's like, okay, I will. Because the other thing too is he entices her with, like, the end of the story, basically. He talks about the Blue City, and we get this one shot of the Blue City, which is super epic. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you the story at the end of the story, but you have to give me the pills. And so He does. She does. And he's like, he's taking them all. And he says, when I fall asleep, you have to go. Okay, and then he continues the story. So it's just, again, like we were talking about the love story between Evelyn. Yeah, I know. It's like getting there.
I'm ready.
Yeah. It's like getting there. And so then like Lady Evelyn reveals like, oh, I'm supposed to get married to Governor Odious. And they're like, what? So now we have to kill you. Okay. So then they go behind the Taj Mahal. And this is like in real life, they shot behind the Taj Mahal. What's kind of funny is like Tarsem was describing, he's like, oh yeah, behind the Taj Mahal, it's like disgusting. It's a yeah, and he was basically saying it's like what do they call it? I forget what exactly they call it, but it's like it's really gross, and like people are like drying their clothes and dumping stuff in the street. It's really nasty. Which, because you think of the Taj Mahal as like one of those beautiful things in the world.
Of course.
And then right behind it is like a sewer. So anyway, they're behind the Taj Mahal, and they're basically going to execute her. And so they put her on this thing, and they're going to blindfold. It's like, no, I want to see him when he kills me.
It's all very dramatic. And that's, again, Roy's projecting a little bit.
Yeah. So then Roy shoots her, and then the locket blocks the bullet, and then Luigi's reading this long piece of text. It's like blah 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 blah. It's like that was all written there. Yes. Blah, blah, blah.
All that was written on that tiny little locket.
Yeah. So then they were like, "Oh, it's true love. It's meant to be." So then, like, she's like, "Oh, are they going to kiss now?" It's like, "Oh, first it has to be a wedding." So then we get this wedding scene.
Yeah, that was good. That was really intense.
It's so brilliant. Like we were talking about before, the costume that Lady Evelyn is wearing in this wedding is like, dude, that what was she wearing? Like a headdress or something?
Yeah, it's like a headdress with like a whole bunch of like dangling sequins, and she kind of like brushes it back with one finger, and it just goes like, and it's
crazy.
It's a crazy getup. She must have been.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking like these actors must have been so hot in those costumes. Thank God Lee Pace was wearing a tank top, basically. But everyone else is just like Luigi's costumes. He's just covered in like coats and fabric, and there's so much fabric. It's so beautiful.
I know, it's so beautiful, and all these people are like spinning. They have these like white and blue. I don't know if you call it like a skirt or something like that, and they're just spinning. And it's in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
It's in slow motion of all them spinning, and the cameras are moving as they're like, they're about to do their wedding vows, and they're like talking to this priest. But then like, the dream world, the fantasy world, and the real world is like kind of
colliding a little bit.
Yeah, because then he's like saying, "Oh, the mystic says, you can't take too many pills because it's." Suicide isn't the answer, which is interesting. And so, yeah, all the stuff is happening, but then like all the bad guys start coming, the henchmen start coming, and then the priest betrays them, and you get this another really cool match cut where it's like the priest again, and this priest is wearing this like really. I mean, these costumes are like the coolest shit I've ever seen.
They're so good. Like
that thing the priest was wearing, where it's like really spiky, like around. I don't know what it's like the collar. I don't know what you call that, but it's a very villain-esque. That's like a Disney villain kind of thing.
Yes, it is very villain-esque. It's very creepy. He looks kind of creepy, like the way they did his makeup, and I don't trust anyone with that kind of haircut personally. But yeah, he's pretty good. I don't like him.
Yeah. And then we get this match cut to a desert. Like, wow, it's so cool. It's so cool. And they're all in this desert. Oh yeah, funny story from like the behind the scenes. They said that when they were shooting this scene, there was someone playing really loud Indian music nearby. And it's so desolate that, they could be 100, like a couple miles away and you'd still hear it. So it was really kind of funny. And so they're being like tortured by the henchmen, and it's like, they're just left out there to die, basically. And yeah, but then basically they're like all gonna die. Roy's like, oh, there's no,
No hope.
there's no hope for them. But then Alexandria herself steps into the movie to save them. And so she like frees Roy, she frees all of them, and Roy, he's able to like kind of, stop whatever from happening. And then all the henchmen run away. But then he goes to sleep. And she's like trying to wake him up. But he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, she kind of takes a break from the story, and she gives him a kiss or whatever. So yeah, what did you think of this whole sequence?
Oh, it was really good. It was really sad. Like, I love that shot of like this, like that. I think he described him as like the stony faced priest or something, and then it like transitions. That was really good. You have this dickhead henchmen depriving them of water, just kind of just bullying them, being jerks. And I love when she crawls out of the bag. Luigi's like, so that's why the bag was so heavy.
Yeah.
It kind of just gives you like, oh yeah, she was there the whole time. She was there. Don't worry about it. And it's really cute. And I think Roy makes a comment in the story, or the bandit makes a comment. He's like, your teeth grew in. And now you're strong, because the whole thing, like, he told her that the old man, like, his strength comes from his teeth. So he has to take them out every now and then. And he told her that, like, once your teeth come in, you'll be really strong. And it means you're strong. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it's all very kind of cute and fun. Even though there's like, the dark stuff is like starting to come in. Yeah,
again, it's those like real world, fantasy world colliding a little bit and becoming a little too real.
Okay, so then the next day, Alexandra's like, she's doing whatever, and she sees a body being taken away. And then she gets really kind of emotional. She like runs to the body. And then she goes to see, where Roy's at, and Roy's there. Roy's still alive. She's like, oh, I thought you were dead, blah, 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 this and that. And then it was like the old guy who helped her actually died. He died, yeah. And then Roy gets really mad because basically they were giving his neighbor placebos.
Yeah, because he's like kind of a hypochondriac.
Yeah.
Like, he's constantly saying, I feel sick. He looks perfectly fine. So they were just giving him placebos to make him feel better, basically. And Roy's a little pissed.
Roy's super pissed.
Because at first, like, she's, like, waking him up, and, like, she's kind of giving, like, she's fumbling over her words. She's really upset. She's, like, she can't get her words right, and she's just really sad. And, but, yeah, that's when Roy, like, loses his shit a little bit. I think I read somewhere that, like, she ran out because, like, Lee Pace actually scared her. Like, his outburst, like, really scared her. And,
well, they did this. They did this shot a lot. They did it like 15 times.
Oh.
Yeah. So they did it a lot. And like you can see, actually, someone kind of takes her away. She like looks at someone, like one of the other actors, who's like a nurse, and the nurse takes her away. Yeah. So, yeah, gets pretty dark. And so then she like tries to get Roy some more pills, and she slips and falls. We get this really interesting dream sequence.
It's very dark. It's very dark when you really pay attention and really pay closely to it.
Yeah. It's really kind of interesting what happens in this dream sequence. And yeah, it's just like some really cool visuals, I'd say. A lot of it is really cool visuals. Like there's one shot where it's Roy, and he just like ascends into the air. When it was with that caravan shot, and they burned the caravan. The caravan's on fire. The others are just like different tableaus of him getting shot in the leg, with like arrows or stabbed in the leg or something like that. And then we get like a stop motion kind of sequence.
Again, this movie has everything.
Yeah,
like
there's literally stop motion.
This might be the freakiest stop motion dream sequence you've ever seen.
Yeah,
they're
for
like
sure.
They're like
it's an operation.
Yeah, it's an operation. They're putting pins in her. Oh God, Ellie. Sorry, she can't figure out which way is up or down. There you go.
Yeah.
Go get some water, babe. Yeah, they like put pins in her at one point. Like they open up a doll's head and they're pulling like paper out.
Pull paper out, yeah.
And it's just like these weird men in robes. They look very similar to the priest in the wedding scene.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. I think some of the objects in the stop motion scene are the toys she had in the box, but I can't be sure. But yeah, and you hear her crying. You hear like a voice over her crying and doctors talking, and then there's a quick shot of the doctor, I think, kind of reaming Roy out, being like, she said that she was getting pills for you, and like this is totally irresponsible, and you're being a shit person, basically. And this kid has a concussion, or whatever happened to her. I'm assuming a concussion. It's really, really sad. Yeah, I hate seeing kids hurt at all in any scenario, and it's just so sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then the next day she wakes up and then Roy is kind of there with her and he's drinking. And so then he's like, he kind of tells the truth of the situation. It's like, the story was just a trick to get you to do something for me. And he's like, okay, I'm going to finish the story now. And the 5 companions decide to go on a suicide mission to attack Governor Otis's mansion in the Blue City. And then, you know, he starts killing them off one by one, each one of the characters. And so, you know, because now Alexandra's like in the story. And she asks the Indian, oh, what does suicide mean? And he's like, you know. So the first thing that happens is the little monkey Wallace, he like goes up something and he's trying to get the butterfly and they shoot him. And they kill him. And so then, yeah, it's really bad. Darwin's like holding him and he's like dying and he's distraught. And then they're in some kind of like, yeah, it's
it's gonna happen.
Sad.
Like that little monkey. Oh my god.
The monkey dies. Dies in his arms. You just sees the monkey die. And then basically Darwin's like, screw it. He's in some, again, another beautiful location, some kind of maze. That was, I believe it's a well. I think it's a well or something like that. Because like, so that it's a well where like, when it's shallow, the water's all the way down there, but like it can get really high if there's a lot of rain or something, and so you can always get down to a lower point to get water.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But like the way it looks like a kind of like another labyrinth basically. And so then all these guys come out, and then all the henchmen form a firing squad, and they blast him and they kill Darwin, and he falls into the water all the way down. So then he's dead. He's dead, and the Wallace the monkey is dead. So then Luigi gets shot in the foot, and so he kind of gives the Indian a look, and he's like, "No, I'm not gonna make it. Just go." And then he leads a bunch of the henchmen to a building, and this was kind of funny. He's like, "Kaboom!" and he has like all these like explosives rigged to go.
Yep.
And then boom, it just blows off a building. It's really that one was really cool. Then the Mystic, they're like running, so they're like running with Alexandria and the other ones and Otobenga, and his teeth fly out of his mouth. His teeth come out, and when he doesn't have his teeth, he doesn't have his power. And so he just like kind of loses it. He's just kind of like stumbling around. And then the henchmen like stomp on his teeth, and they just start beating on him and killing him. And as they're killing,
does it transition to him being the old man at one point? I thought it did. I couldn't quite tell because of all the makeup and everything that's going on. At one point, like it looks like he's turning into the old man, but I could be very wrong about that as well.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see. I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about right. Yeah, and so then as they start killing him, like the birds start coming out of his mouth, which I forget it, but they kind of talk about it. It's something to do with his power. But yeah, then he's dead. And then Alexandra tries to protect him, and then that gets her in danger. And so then the henchman starts firing arrows, and then Otobenga like protects her, and she starts taking a bunch of arrows in his back. And so the arrows kill him. So then he's dead. And then we get this really crazy shot where he's the arrows are in his back, and then he like falls on the arrows on his back. Yeah, it's really brilliant. And so now it's just like the Indian, Roy, and Alexandria. And so then the Indian, they're like climbing up his hair. It's really kind of crazy.
I couldn't tell if it was his hair or because he takes off his headdress at one point. And I thought maybe they were climbing up that, but I mean, the guy also just has amazing hair.
Yeah.
So that might be just another reason why, like, oh my God, he was gorgeous too.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why, but.
Yeah. I think that he like uses his hair as like a lasso or whatever. And so they're climbing his hair, and then the two of them get up this building or whatever. It's probably like another, one of these mansions basically that was built. Every location in this is like the most beautiful thing in the world.
Oh yeah,
pretty much. And then he's like caught by the henchmen, and he's like, time to go. And he cuts his hair, and then they fall to their death. Yeah, and at this point it's just like all kind of coming apart, and Roy's killing everybody, and Alexander's crying, and he's basically like, Roy's just like, I'm a piece of shit person. I'm a terrible person. You can't trust me. You shouldn't care about me. And this is like, he's just trying to like push her away. But she's kind of not having it. But then comes the really hard part for her. So then it's time for Roy, the bandit, to die. And so the bandit is like trying to find Governor Odious. And then it's kind of interesting because like then she like tries to kind of take over the story, but like he's like, no, this is gonna happen. And he's like, Governor Odious like beats him up, takes him into a pool, and he's like drowning him. And he's the bandit's about to die, and she's like, no, don't kill him, don't do it. And he's just like, no, the bandit's terrible. Like he lied. He crossed his fingers when he took his oath.
He's a coward.
He's a coward. Yeah.
Yeah.
All this bad stuff. And then she's like, no, don't kill him. This is my story too. Like I don't want you to kill him. Let him live.
Yeah, and then she says something like, I don't want you to die.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that breaks me. Ugh.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I don't think she cares about the story anymore. I think she's like, she projected him into the story too. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not the only one projecting, She doesn't have a dad. I feel like it's kind of more like a big brother kind of a thing, but yeah, she doesn't have that like father figure or anything anymore. And yeah, that's. Oh.
Yeah. It gets really emotional, but then finally he kind of relents. He's like, okay, I'll do it, because it's like she's kind of safe. There's even a line where she like brings him some like a Eucharist or whatever, because she's just eating it.
Yeah, just eating him like a snack.
Yeah,
she doesn't understand the significance to them or anything.
Yeah, she just like wanted it because it's food. And he's like, are you trying to save my soul? And it seems like, yeah, she's actually trying to save him. This whole story, that's actually what it's about, is like giving him a purpose. Giving him a purpose that's a meaning outside of these other things, so that he can, kind of move on and understand that his life still has purpose and meaning, and there are people that care about him. And so then story changes. And so the bandit just like gets up and just starts beating the shit out of Odious. And then we get this like cute moment where like, he like beats, it's so kind of silly and fairy tale, and he beats him up, and then he like saves her. He's like, oh, it's okay, we won, we did it, it's over.
Yeah, because I think she even says something like, he says, and he beat him up, and she was like, no more violence or something like that. And she's like, I've had enough. I don't want any more scary shit. He goes to his daughter and he picks her up, and like that's what he does in the story. He's like, oh, it's okay, it's fine. Why don't we get out of here?
Yeah, let's leave. Yeah, it's so cute because it's it's exactly like what a kid would want. Like I want everyone to be fine. I want all the people I care about to be fine, and then let's just leave and be happy. And then we get this cool kind of thing with well, it's interesting. Like basically, Odious like falls on his own sword. He just falls on his own sword.
So yeah, that kind of hurts.
Yeah. It's really. Yeah, it's so fairy tale and like kid logic, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
It's all wonderful. And then basically like there was this other kind of subplot with like Lady Evelyn like betrayed them or whatever. And then like Lady Evelyn's like, oh, I want to be with you again, Roy, the bandit. Yep. And it's like, oh, you just have to follow your heart. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll follow. And he has like the little heart pendant, like, yeah, follow your heart, and he just throws it off this city. By the way, okay, this whole blue city thing is like so cool.
Oh my god, I love it.
Right? Like this is a legitimately blue city. Every house is blue.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I don't know if I've seen it in other movies before, but it's definitely a location that I've seen before. I don't know where it is. But it is very, very cool. I mean, it's like it's made to be taken pictures of or be put in movies. Like it's so cool looking.
Yeah. Yeah, and like one of the things they did for this film was they gave every house paint so they could paint their house so they'd all be really brilliant for the film. Yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's just like so many, and like this scene at the end when Lady Evelyn like comes to them and they're like up. I forget exactly what it looked like, but they're like up on some kind of like it's like a terrace or something like that. And it's overlooking the city, and I think there's even I don't know if it's in this shot, but there's another shot where there's like a cannon or something.
Yeah, there's like a cannon pointing like right out towards everything.
Yeah, it's just like wow. You know, it just feels so fantastical. It just feels like something that a kid would think up in their mind of a world that doesn't exist, but it exists here, and you just got to find it.
Exactly.
It's so brilliant. I love it. Yeah. So, what do you think about like this whole ending?
Oh, I liked it. You know, it was wrapped up really well. He gives her a happy ending because like they both kind of deserve a happy ending, especially you know Roy. Like, I'm not saying he should have just stopped feeling sorry for himself, but he needed to understand that like you're more than like the sum of your parts. Like you have way more to offer than anything. And yeah, losing the use of your legs is like debilitating and horrible, and it's gonna change your whole life. But you can't just like roll over and give up. You can't just roll over and die. Like there is plenty to still live for.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's a beautiful kind of love story. Like the two of them coming together and like kind of because they're both, you know, broken in different ways. Like for Alexandria, like obviously whatever's going on with her family has had a pretty bad impact on her life. But we don't totally see all of it. And she probably doesn't communicate all of it, but it's well done in the way that you kind of sense like, okay, wherever she was from, it was really bad, and they had to leave, and she doesn't have a dad anymore. It's just her and her mom, and I guess her sister, and she's out here picking fruit, and she fell. You know, that's a lot for a kid to go through.
Yeah, and kids internalize a lot of trauma. They internalize a lot of it because they don't really know how to interpret it and things like that. So there's probably a lot of things that she has in her that she just doesn't know how to put into words, which is why when we see certain things in the story that she's imagining, they could have been things that she really saw, you know what I mean? Like they could have been things that traumatized her, and this is how she's, you know, rationalizing it or whatever. But yeah, they're two very like broken, like literally broken people, and you have it like him as an adult who's broken and not dealing with it very well. And then if you have her as a kid who's broken and doesn't know how to deal with it at all.
Yeah. And so then at the end of this film, we watch them watch the silent film that Roy did the stunt for. And they're watching the film and they're all, you know, it's one of these like, it's kind of cool. This is another kind of cool moment because this kind of brings this film, another thing about this film that's so cool is that it's really all about like storytelling and like kind of film in general too, because you know this scene really kind of I think kind of it does a good job of like showing like what film was about, what stories are about, like why we care, why they touch us, why it makes us feel something, any kind of emotion, because it's just all of them together, watching this film, and someone's on the camera operating it.
Someone's playing a violin for the background.
Yeah, someone's playing a violin. It's really cool, and they're all laughing, and all the kids are smiling, and it gets to the stunt, and Roy gets really nervous, and then he sees that they basically cut it out or whatever. And then it kind of subsides, and he's like, okay, it's not there or whatever, but I can move on. I can live with it.
He kind of faces his fear. You know what I mean? In a way, like this stunt that ruined him in a way is kind of like haunting him. And he finally kind of faces it. He confronts it, and he's like, okay, I did it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then it ends with this kind of, basically Alexandria like goes back into the fields or whatever, and then we see the Indian guy that she works with, which is cool. And then she's like, I forget, she's like writing a note or something. There's some voiceover, and it ends with this really cool montage of like these silent movie stunts. And they even did one where they superimpose Lee Pace into some person, because like Alexandra's like, oh, I saw him in this movie, and I saw him there, and I saw him there, and I saw him there. And she's just like talking about stuff. The actor, it's really brilliant, and that whole montage is super brilliant too.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's kind of like paying homage to like that era of stuntmen, where they're like, there's one where this guy's getting off a motorcycle onto a moving train or something. Like it's crazy. Like
it's crazy. It's actually insane.
Collide. Yeah, it is. Like no safety regulations, no harnesses, no padding. Just like, I need you to
do dude that. And some stuff. Yeah,
a dude with a death wish, or someone who's just not afraid of anything. And it's how far it's come. Basically, that's what it felt like to me. It was just like, hey, we appreciate you, and this is where it all started, where it all came from. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And that's the end of the film. And it comes full circle. This film is like, so it's kind of metatextual too, and self-reflexive, like, because it's a story about stories, and it's about film. It's a film about film too. And so all of it kind of, it's just so, it does that really well too. It's kind of meta in a way where it doesn't become too cheeky or anything. It's still kind of like authentic.
Yes, exactly.
And you kind of get, it's all about like how powerful stories can be for people.
And how they can affect people, how they can sometimes change their life. And like you said, very reflective as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that covers the movie. I guess let me see, what's I'm trying to think of like any kind of topic we could talk about, just like about this movie, but I feel like we've said a lot. I guess, okay, here's my question. So what was your favorite location?
That's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
I do really like the first like epic he tells her about Alexander the Great. Just because of like the sand on it. I know that might sound really weird. The vastness, the barrenness, like the isolation, like you're with all your bros, but you're totally isolated and cut off from everything. But I do really like the labyrinth that the Indian's wife is trapped in. There's something like, it's scary, but like there's something about it that like, because sometimes it almost looked like she was running like at different angles, like the camera's like horizontal at her, but she's like moving in all of these weird directions. Yeah. And there's no camera tricks to that. And at one point when she runs up to like the highest like peak, like she has blood up from her feet because she's just been trying to get out for so long. And I really liked that area. Yeah.
That's a really good one, because I forget what that place is in real life. It's some kind of like, I believe it's something to do with maybe astrology or astronomy. I forget. I'd have to look it up.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like all the locations are so cool. I think that I really like the stuff that they did like in India with like the Taj Mahal stuff and like the whatever that island, the little building in the lake. It's just so kind of fairy tale romantic.
It is, yeah.
It just totally fits.
See, it's hard. Like
mood.
Now, I'm just like, oh, is that my favorite place? Because they go so many places.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like I love the scene where they attack the caravan.
Yeah, that was really good.
That's just that shot where it's them on the cliff and they're looking down and you see the building. That's unbelievable, man.
Oh, it's so good.
That's unbelievable because you have to find a place where there's a cliff overlooking some, I don't know whatever it was, like a sand, and you have to say, okay, so there. I mean, and the little caravan is way far away. It's far away.
Oh yeah,
super far away. But that shot is so brilliant. It's just so brilliant. And it just does so many cool things with scale.
Yes,
because you always feel the scale of where you're at.
Yeah, especially the shot with that giant banner and they're at the bottom and it's just so massive. You can really feel how big it is.
The yeah. That's one of the ones that's like on the poster. It's like that them at the banner. Because like we were saying before, there is absolutely nothing in cinema you're gonna really find like that, other than The Fall. Yeah,
and it's just every shot is just candy. It's you get a sugar rush from watching it. You just get a rush of fuck, why am I not that creative? Yeah. Why am I not that cool? Why am I not that thoughtful? And it's a really, really great great piece of everything. Because like I said, this movie has everything you could ever want.
Mm-hmm. So what was your favorite costume?
Probably her wedding dress. Mm-hmm. Just because it's just so crazy and outrageous. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with the wedding dress.
That's a good one. I really love that. Whatever that headdress she was wearing, I love that. I love it.
Because I don't know if the headdress is attached to the rest of the dress, or if they just put it on her and then sew her in. But because it all looks like it's just one piece. Mm-hmm. She's just covered in literally head to toe fabric. And it's just again, those dangling sequins are just so pretty.
That's so cool. I think, it's kind of hard. The ones I really like, I like the thing she had when she comes out of the little caravan and with the little veil. I really like that because that's it's I don't know. There's something totally otherworldly about it. So that's one of my favorites. There's actually there obviously there's a lot of really, really good ones. I really like what Roy, the way they fit Roy with that because it's very simple, but I forget what style that is.
It's I feel like some very old school military uniforms looked like that. It had the horizontal stripes going across it. I've seen it before in other movies. It's a neat costume design. I've seen it. I think there's a costume in Phantom of the Opera that has something similar. Anna Karenina. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but I still like the minimalist approach to him because he's just draped in black. It's kind of like the Princess Bride. He's the man in black kind of a thing, which we always kind of like that kind of character.
And when he's wearing that the mask, the mask is really cool. The red mask, it's very kind of simple red mask with the little slits. There's something about I think it's like the German Prussian.
Something like that. It does seem very. It's very. They had those European. Buttons. Yeah, It's very European. Whatever it is, it's very cool looking. Pardon me. Sorry.
No, it's all good. There's a lot of, and like we were talking about at the beginning, the Indians green kind of.
Oh my God! It's
brilliant. Yeah.
Freaking pretty. I am wearing a color similar to that to my sister's wedding, and I will not look nearly as good as he does. He looks so good. He just looks phenomenal. It's a good outfit. I think there's even a little like stripe of gold or something on it too. Yeah, it's really great. Luigi's costume is actually pretty good too. So it's almost
it is
tunic skirt thing. It's like, I think that's what it's called, a tunic more than it is a skirt. Kind of like a long shirt. But it kind of like bows out a little bit. And it's got that sway. All of these costumes have like a certain amount of sway to it. Like just fabric draping. And it's very cool.
Yeah, they're all really, really brilliant. It's hard to like have a favorite because they're all just like the most amazing thing ever.
Oh yeah.
And like we were talking about that priest, that really creepy kind of, like, I swear to God, that's something that I forget the first villain in Snow White, but that's something that she wore.
The evil queen, the evil stepmother, whatever.
Yeah, the evil queen. I feel like she wore something like that. Because it's like the way that that the thing.
There's a word for it. There is like a word for it. It's more than a collar, I feel like. Like that kind of couture, almost like, not drapery. Like, I know that there's a word for it. I can't think of it. But it's very stiff looking, but it's very like pointed. It's almost like the costumes, like, again, become part of the character.
Yeah, they do. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I think that covers. Is there any kind of last thoughts you have about the film?
Not really, except to just watch it. Yeah, you'll be very happy that you watched it. And you'll want to watch it again. Yeah,
this is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's everyone should see it. I wish that it was on like Netflix or some, just some kind of platform where people could easily watch it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what happened with this movie. I mean, unfortunately, it didn't get very great distribution when it came out. At first. I feel like it's been like underrated. Like it's known, but this is a movie that like everyone should watch, basically.
Yeah, and it's only a movie you find out about if somebody else tells you. You know what I mean? Like, I only knew about it because my sister told me and someone told her. And it's not underground necessarily, but it does feel intentionally overlooked in some ways. It's not too smart for audiences, so I don't think there's that. I think anybody could get it.
Aaron is saying get a Fire Stick and you can you can watch it that way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But there does seem to feel like, I don't know if it went to any film festivals or anything like that. I'm assuming it did because it's a very film festival type of movie. But to a broader audience, I don't know why it wasn't distributed better or more. I mean, part of that could be funding, but yeah, it seems overlooked on purpose in some ways.
The other thing too is like this movie's rated R. Like I don't know. Like to me, this movie so it
because that can hurt a movie sometimes. It can definitely hurt a movie because you're not gonna, like, my mom never brought me to see R-rated movies. Even though this movie, I feel like a kid could watch it.
Yeah, totally. This is. I always feel like this is a movie for like kids. It's a movie that a kid and an adult should watch together, basically.
Yeah, because like I feel like that the what obviously there were some things we shouldn't have watched as kids. That is a given. That is going to happen. Yeah. But now it feels like there's too many pairs of kid gloves on to protect kids from things. And I get we need to protect them from things. Don't get me wrong. But if it's all just implied violence, or if it's just implied, even like there's like a scene where Nurse Evelyn is like rocking Alexandria to sleep because she's having a hard time sleeping, and they have like a bond of some kind. And the doctor comes in and she looks at him and she's just like, give me a minute. You know what that means. Like, an adult knows what that means.
Yeah.
She's having an affair with the doctor. She's getting a little freaky.
Yeah, there's another part of that subplot where like Alexandria, like it's implied that Alexandria like sees them having sex or something.
Yeah, but you don't see it.
You don't see it.
You don't see it. So I'm not having watched this movie numerous times, I think an R rating is excessive.
It's super excessive.
There's definitely blood. The only scene I can really think of maybe is the scene with the banner, and there's a lot of blood and a body.
The only thing is, like when they hang all those people, and when Governor Odious dies, that's it. The rest of this movie is like PG. It's literally PG.
Exactly, and I think certain kids might not have the attention span for it because it is a long movie. It is very long, and we know that kids have a short attention span, unless it's freaking Minecraft or something.
Yeah.
But I still I would watch it with maybe like a 12-year-old. I think I would watch it with like a 12, 11-year-old. Anything younger than that, they're going to lose interest, I feel like, just because, again, sitting them in front of something that for so long is a lot to ask of a kid. But the rated R thing, I just don't agree with. I feel like that's it's an inappropriate rating for a movie that isn't inappropriate.
It's ridiculous. It's not an R-rated movie. It should be PG-13, and it's really a PG movie. But because like the thing about fairy tales, right? The old fairy tales, they're very dark.
Yeah, and they're incredibly dark.
Yeah. Now this doesn't play. It's a fairy tale that doesn't go dark, but at the end, it kind of goes there with Governor Odious. He dies. He does die in a silly way, but you see him die, and he's a bad guy. So the bad guy should die.
Exactly.
Right?
And quite frankly, we laugh when he dies because he's an idiot who falls on his own sword and is floating in a pool being like, oh, this really hurts. It really hurts. Like, it's kind of funny. They do mention suicide. They do mention there is a little kid who dies in it. So that might be scary for some kids, but still, it's not R-rated worthy. It's nothing. The violence isn't gruesome when there is violence, and when there is sexuality, you don't even see it. It's all from her perspective, from things. Oh yeah, we get it. We get why she's freaked out by this, or why she doesn't understand. But yeah, I think that's a little ridiculous. Because rating a movie like that can definitely hurt its chances.
Yeah, because I feel like this is made for like you said, like a 12-year-old and like a 20 to 30 to 40-year-old to watch together, and because each one of them will come away with something different. Yeah, and
I can think there's mentions of slavery involved, but I was watching a kid's show called Waffles and Mochi with Brian and his kid, and they mentioned they're going around to different restaurants, and it's a restaurant owned by a black restaurateur, and he creates a lot of authentic African American foods and dishes and stuff like that. And he teaches the main character, oh well, my parents came from here and we were enslaved, and explains it in a way a child would understand. So I don't really understand if that's what they're worried about, because kids should learn about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's a little ridiculous. Ratings. I don't always agree with ratings personally.
Yeah, it's super ridiculous. I wouldn't have a problem showing this to someone who's relatively young. Obviously not someone who's 8 or 9 or 10, but someone who's 12, 13, 14, even maybe a little younger, depending on their, because it's basically a PG movie.
Yeah, it's a PG movie. I was watching Homeward Bound, and that scared the shit out of me when I was little.
I honestly feel like the Never-Ending Story is more messed up than this movie.
First of all, I hate that movie, but I definitely agree. Babe has blood in it. Babe has so many. I watched that with Ryan. He had never seen it before, and he was like, "I thought this was a kids movie." I'm like, "It is." You live on a farm, you learn about death. I lived on a farm, there was death, and you learn about everything on a farm. And it's it's a kid. When he finds Ma in the field after the wolves come, and there's blood all over her. That's scary. Yeah, life is scary, especially if you're a sheep. But
yeah, that's the thing too. I feel like good stories for kids or people that are young. It's a way to teach them stuff, about the world, about reality, about how you should be prepared for things in a way that's, sanitized. It's not going to be over the top.
Oh yeah, I don't want to scar anybody.
But it's also scar. Yeah. talking about The Lion King.
Exactly. Like
yeah.
Scar
Scar murders his brother.
He
Yeah.
wants to kill a cub. He wants to kill a cute, innocent. I mean, yeah, it'll definitely become a man eater, but like he wants to kill like this cute, tiny little fuzzball. Fucking Scar, what an asshole!
Yeah,
I watched that remake recently, and it pissed me off. I was like, what the hell am I watching? I'm just watching The Lion King. Like, why did we do this? Fuck you, Disney. Here's my money, but fuck you.
Yeah, Disney. Ugh. Anyway, yeah. So I think that covers everything. So I think that the next movie we should talk about, since we're on Tarsem, we should watch The Cell.
Is Jennifer Lopez in that?
Yes, Jennifer Lopez.
Okay. Because we had a VHS when I was growing up, and I don't know what it was, but it had a trailer in front of it of The Cell, and it scared the shit out of me. I don't know what this movie's about. I'm going to go into this cold. I'm not going to watch anything related to it. I'm not going to read anything about it. I'm going into this fresh. Okay. It was probably on the same VHS where there was a trailer for The Relic, too. But I can't be sure.
Okay. Yeah, the Cell never scared me. When I watched it, I probably watched it probably like 2001. It was probably like 13 or 14. It didn't really scare me, but it is a horror film, and it's a very interesting film. It's a very interesting film. Like, I really like it. There's some people who don't like it, but it'll be fun to watch it after watching this film and discussing them kind of one after the other.
I'm cool with that. My parents didn't always believe in letting us watch horror movies. So now that I'm older, I mean, now that I'm older, I do something called September Fest where I watch nothing but horror movies because I was never exposed to it. So I'm excited about that. I'm cool. I think it was on a list of movies I did want to watch anyway. So
yeah, it's a very unique film, and it's very much so. Like, I remember we were talking about when we reviewed Dark City. We talked about Dark City and the Matrix. The Cell is kind of like another one of those movies in that vein.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about that. And you've never seen it, right?
I've never seen it. Like I said, there was a trailer for it on some VHS that we owned, and I wonder if I'm actually getting it confused with Dracula because of the costumes. I'm wondering if that's what's confusing me.
Yeah, I mean, what's her name did do the costumes for that film as well.
Yeah, now that I'm making that connection after you said that, I'm like, I'm wondering if my little kid brain got confused with seeing other things. That could also be a factor, but yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing next week. We'll be talking about The Cell. We talked about The Fall. Watch The Fall. Find the DVD. Get your Fire Stick. Do whatever. Watch this film. This film is really, really, really good. And it's one of the best films of all time. One of the most underrated films of all time. One of the greatest kind of cult films of all time. It's just, like, The Fall is like why movies are great.
Yes.
Like,
it is why moving pictures are so fantastic. This is why we kept making them, to get to this point. And you will not be disappointed. This is why people tell stories.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So I'm going to be on with Aaron later today for another podcast where we're going to watch, I forget what the two, so I know we spanned the wheel and then it landed on a film I wanted to watch, Dogville. It's like a 3-hour indie movie. So yeah, we're going to talk about
packed schedule.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. And so I also forced them to watch this 3-hour indie movie after watching Dogville and The Heat. We're going to watch. Very interesting mix of films. All right, cool. So yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, Aaron, for dropping by. May the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.